Welcome to Mind of the Forest, a podcast of the Louisiana Forestry Association. I'm your host, Jeff Zeringue, Media Specialist for the LFA. In Mind of the Forest, we talk about forestry and how important managed forests are for the environment and ecosystems, as well as many aspects of the forest products industry. Forest landowners, loggers, and wood manufacturers all play an important role in the conservation and management of forests for the important renewable natural resource it is. The LFA advocates to keep forests as forests because managed forests offer more for wildlife and water protection. This episode of Mind of the Forest is sponsored by First South Farm Credit. First South is your premier rural lender. With over 100 years financing timber and agriculture, they have the expertise you're looking for when financing rural property. If you're looking to purchase or refinance land, call your local First South Farm Credit office or find them online at firstsouthland.com. This is episode 57 of Mind of the Forest, and our guest is Jack McFarland, Louisiana's only legislative logger. Jack McFarland, a logger from Winnfield, also a state representative and also past president of the Louisiana Logging Council, and if I'm not mistaken, also a former Logger of the Year.
Yes.
What year was that?
2008.
2008. So
almost 20 years ago. Can you imagine?
oh my gosh.
Doesn't seem like it.
I know it doesn't. But then again, if you're looking at years going past, you are in your final term as state representative. How is that overall? How's that gone for you?
Look, it's been a privilege of my lifetime to serve the people of Wynn Parish. District 13 specifically, it's Wynn, Jackson, Bienville, and Natchitoches. But been a lot of challenges. Mm-hmm. Those challenges have really been what has given me the ability to rise into leadership. First term, I was able to be appointed to appropriations. And second term, I was still on appropriations and appointed as chairman of Ag and Forestry. Mm-hmm. And now in my final term, I'm chairman of appropriations, which for our area, not just my district, but for all of Central and North Louisiana, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it is, because we are the more rural area of the state, and sometimes, at least we get the feeling that we're kind of left out. Sometimes. You find that with some of your constituents?
I hear it from people everywhere I go that, Baton Rouge or Louisiana is represented by people more south of Baton Rouge. And so for myself to be a chairman of appropriations, which is our money committee, we craft a budget. And then also we have Glenn Womack from Harrisonburg, who is chairman of the Senate Finance. So you have two guys from Central and North Louisiana, which is an anomaly in itself, that both of us at the same time. Yeah. So I guess it proves the narrative false, at least for this 4 years, that all the power and all the money goes below I-10. And I like to disprove that narrative even further, Jeff, because we really are one Louisiana. Mm-hmm. I mean, if we're going to get Louisiana a better opportunity, we have to think of ourselves that way and not think of us as two separate states. So I think that even the governor, I think that's been a big interest of his. If you look at the business opportunities, economic development that is happening in North Louisiana, it's a lot of big events have been happening. A lot of significant investments are occurring in North Louisiana. And even the governor has made a point to say he sees North Louisiana as an economic triangle. If you go from Shreveport to Monroe to Alexandria and back to Shreveport, that's a triangle. Mm-hmm. And if you look at the economic opportunities that are existed and that are actually happening right now in those regions, and the potential economic opportunities, just the ones that I know of, and some I've had to sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and can't discuss them. I'm excited. There's a lot of potential. We've been recognized as, there's a lot of room here for people to build homes. We have a lot of rural area. We know the challenges with building homes in South Louisiana, especially as it relates to hurricanes, driving up the cost of insurance, and I know we'll get to that. Yep. Because we did do more insurance reform this session. But I think there's a lot of opportunity for Central and North Louisiana.
Okay. Before we get into too much, I guess as a former journalist, I'm kind of curious is if you can compare your first day at the legislature, very first day, with coming into your third term last year. What strikes you as, I don't know if it's most important or a stark contrast with what you've experienced, or talk a little about, compare those 2 days for us.
So my first day in the legislature was actually when we voted for Speaker of the House. So historically, the governor's always kind of picked his speaker, who he'd like to be Speaker of the House. Well, once again, we broke that mold, and the governor did not get to just single out who he wanted to be. I mean, he did have his preference, and he had made it known to each one of us. But it was a very tense moment on the House floor because it's a roll call vote. It's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes, a lot of pressure from ranking officials to legislators to outside business owners to individuals.
Yeah.
And, when you're sworn in your first day, and then that's the first vote you make is to elect a speaker, you have your family with you. My family was sitting on the House floor with me. I can remember my parents were beside me on the side rail, and they'd never experienced anything like that, nor had I. But for me, I guess it was really good because it set the mold for what was going to happen over my 3 terms, because it seems like every term, every year is unique. There's always tough votes, but the thing that I've been able to do as compared to that first vote to where I'm at today is I've learned how to handle that type pressure better and how to communicate better. And, when you first get elected, you think you really know and you think you're really prepared, but you're not. It's so much more that goes into it. There's not a class that you can take to prepare you for it. And then when you start thinking about all the things that the state really is involved in, we have this disbelief that, it's just roads and bridges and, but it's not. It's so much more. I mean, everything about your health care, your infrastructure, your education, your employment, your taxes. I mean, it is just so many things that the government is involved in. And we all talk about, hey, less government and especially less government spending.
Right.
And that's where I am now. This was the first year, my 10 years, that we've had actually less growth in government. We actually had a below the standstill budget. And what I mean is we looked at what we spent last year, and we spent 2.7% less. And you say 2.7% is not much, but actually it is when you're talking about $12.5 billion. So anytime that you can take government and you can still provide the same services and you can provide them in a more efficient way and save taxpayers money. I mean, you think about it. Just last fall, we had a tax session. We lowered our income tax to a flat tax. We did away with the franchise tax on businesses. We lowered corporate taxes. We actually moved Louisiana from out of the top 40 worst tax states. Now we're in the top 18. So when you look at what the Tax Foundation, it's a nonprofit organization that ranks all the states, is the most respected organization, then when you look at that, Louisiana's doing really well right now. It's putting us in a position to experience some of these economic victories we've had over the last year and a half. And I foresee us having more opportunities because of some of the changes that we're making in our tax structure. Unfortunately for all of us, that is what businesses and individuals look at when they're deciding where they're going to live. Louisiana actually even seen some population growth for the first time in years. It was minimal, but we'll take anything at this point.
If it's moving in the other direction than what it has been in the last 3 decades.
It has.
That is good news.
We have lost population, seems like every year, but specifically every decade. So any trend even if it's minimal, to start moving our state, specifically not just job growth, but population growth, to a positive, I'll take it. I mean, I think it does demonstrate that we are doing some things right, even with the insurance reform.
Yeah, let's talk about insurance reform. And now, last year, rather, we had a lot of insurance reform. Mostly, it seemed like what they worked on was property insurance, homeowners, things of that nature. They moved to more of a vehicle, automotive type of insurance reform, and some tort reform that's mixed in with that. So let's talk a little bit about that. What would you say is the act that was passed and signed by the governor that will take most effect on Louisiana citizens?
So really 2 bills this year. Let me back up. Last year, there was 28 bills sent to the governor. He signed 27 of them. And I do believe that they are working. And the reason I say that is in my meetings with insurance companies and the defense attorneys, because I carried a lot of those bills over the last 10 years, and I look back and I laugh because I'm thinking, man, I couldn't even get those bills out of committee, and now they're actually getting signed by a governor. Man. And that's how far we've come in 10 years with reform. Now, it would have been better if we'd have done it 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
But to get it to the governor's desk and he actually signed them is a win. It's a victory for our people. But if you look to what's been passed and what the insurance companies and the defense attorneys are all saying, when you pass new laws, we think, okay, this is going to be instant. We're going to get an instant gratification, or we're going to get an instant reduction in insurance. Well, it doesn't work that way. First, you have cases that are in court that fall under the old laws, and it takes 1 to 2 years to work all those cases through the court system. Mm-hmm. Then, once they do, and the changes in the laws that we've made actually reduce the payouts and how those cases can be settled, and the things that can be considered as evidence, the things that cannot be considered as evidence. As those changes go into effect and the insurance companies are paying out less and their bottom lines, their actuarials actually change, then that's when you see the savings in insurance premiums. And I think that's what we're all waiting for now. 2 of the biggest bills I can tell you, especially for me, I'm thinking about commercial auto insurance, but even as it relates to the private individual. Comparative fault, a bill that Representative Emily Chenevert carried, is going to play a significant role. Senator Mike Reese carried a bill about recoverable medical expenses, also known as collateral source. And those, to me, are 2 of the largest bills, especially when it comes to the large settlements that you see with the plaintiff's attorneys, what we call the billboard lawyers.
Yeah.
Those are really the things that are driving up the big cost for commercial or the big settlements. But anytime that you can responsibly, because, look, if you're injured in an accident, really injured, you deserve compensation. If your life has been changed and you can no longer work and you're permanently disabled, or you deserve that compensation. I don't think anybody will disagree with that. But the unrealistic part of it for me is when people are not actually injured that serious and then they receive a huge payout, or that the fact that we've created this narrative in Louisiana that, okay, I had an accident, no one was hurt, but let me go and file a lawsuit because now I can win the lottery and I can get a payout.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately the narrative. So how do you change that narrative? I think that with the laws that we passed last year and the ones we passed more than just the 2 bills I just mentioned, but you change that by changing the perception by the people. And when I say that, I mean that so people view the court system and even the plaintiff's attorneys and the billboard attorneys as chasing an ambulance is what we always say.
Yeah.
But anytime that we can put restrictions on how far and how close you can get to that ambulance, then we're succeeding. And I think that's what we did. Let's talk about one of the biggest bills to me was that recoverable medical expenses.
Okay.
For too long, the big cases have been settled with us not knowing actually what was actually paid to the hospitals or actually paid in medical expenses.
Yeah.
And what's happened is you created an environment where those bills were inflated, unfortunately, by hospitals, by surgical centers, by everyone involved, even the plaintiff's attorneys. But now those actual medical expenses can be made known to a jury and to the judge, and the actual medical expenses can be discussed and actually be considered when you're deciding a verdict. And I think that is the real importance of it is that over the next 1 to 3 years, based on insurance companies I've already visited with and defense attorneys, we're starting to see a shift. I spoke with 2 insurance companies this year who said, hey, based off of what y'all did last year, we actually started seeing a small profit again. That's just 2. Now, imagine if all the insurance companies' profits start rising, then there's going to be competition because other insurance companies will want to come here and write because they know now that it is profitable again. Okay. So the insurance companies left because they weren't able to make a profit. So now, by changing those laws and lowering those big settlements, those big cases, I think that what you're going to see is the public's going to look. I don't think that we'll ever go back to where we were at 10 years ago, and I would be naive and misleading for me to tell anyone that.
Yeah.
Even for my personal business. And look, I'll share with you. Just 7-8 years ago, I was paying $7,000-8,000 a year per truck for insurance. Now I'm paying almost $15,000 per truck. Do I think I'll ever pay $7,000 or $8,000 again? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
I mean, you got inflation, you got a lot of other variables, but do I think it can be minimized and you won't see the significant increases? Do I think that it could lower it? Yes, absolutely. I think we could see some lowering. I just don't think it's going to go back to what we all hope it would.
That sounds a little bit like what was passed last year but vetoed by the governor. What's the difference?
So the bill last year was collateral source, the one he vetoed. So as the law originally was stood, is that all that could be claimed was 40% of the actual 40% of the medical cost. Well, the bill that was vetoed lowered that to 30%. Well, there was a lot of feeling that if we passed that, lowering it 10% more wasn't going to do anything significant because they could still play games and increase what the medical costs were. So coming back this year and doing it the way we did it, the way Senator Reese did it, is the way it really should have been done last year. So, I have mixed emotions about that when some people say, well, I'm really upset that the governor vetoed that. Well, had that passed, some people may not have wanted to come back this year and try it again. And that's the way it works in the legislature because the pressure from the outside to do things, the pressure from the outside not to do things. And so I don't know if we'd have had that same pressure on us again this year to revisit that. But with that veto, and he's right, it didn't go far enough. It didn't go far enough to really make an impact. Well, what we have now with Senator Reese's bill on recoverable medical expenses or collateral source, this goes much further. This is really a much better option for us.
Okay. So the other insurance bill you talked about was concerning the not comparative
comparative fault.
Yeah, comparative fault. What tell us a little bit about that.
I'm going to give you an example that even our chairman of insurance on the House side, Gabe Furman, he and I had this conversation. Then he stood up and asked a question from Representative Chenevert. And the example is really one that I've seen as a big commercial truck owner. In an accident, the person that actually caused the accident, the 2 insurance companies got together and said, well, okay, this one's going to be 95% at fault, and then my commercial truck's going to be 5%. Well, if I carry a $2 million policy and I'm liable for 5%, my 5% of my $2 million policy is $100,000, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're 95% at fault and you only carry $25,000,
which is the minimum,
then you're only liable for 95% of the $25,000. So even though my fault was only 5%, I'm going to pay out more than you when you're 95% responsible for the accident. So what it says now is you don't get more than 51%. And if you're more than 51%, you're responsible for all of it. Oh, okay. So, I mean, it's a much better approach. Sounds
fairer.
It is much fairer.
Okay. What other insurance bills that came through the legislature that we should talk about today?
So for years we've even before the insurance companies even required it, we put dash cameras in our trucks. Oh. And, we didn't get no reduction in our premiums. For even now you have to have dash cameras and telematics. But I've had telematics in my trucks, which is just basically GPS monitoring systems, mm-hmm. Where you can see where your truck is, how fast he's going at any time, and you get alerts and different things.
Right.
And we didn't get any discounts, but you're spending a lot of money especially if you run any amount of trucks.
Yeah.
Well, now you're going to get a 5% discount, and 5% doesn't sound like much, but at least it covers the cost of the cameras and the cost of the telematics.
Yeah.
And so you're getting something for it. And the big benefit, and insurance companies always said, well, the reason we don't offer a reduction is because you're doing that to protect your own interest as well. Because anytime that, there is an accident and you have dash cameras or even telematics, then those things can be used in court to demonstrate that you're not at fault, which saves the insurance company money for sure, but it also saves me so that my premiums don't go up. Well, that is a savings, but it's not the same. I mean, when you're told, you got to do this now and you still don't get any
you don't get any benefit
yeah. Other than that the insurance company's not paying out as much. Well, now there is a benefit to it. Mm-hmm. That's another one. I mean, there were several other bills. I can't think of all of them right now because look, we passed almost 30 bills out of the legislature, out of the House to the Senate. Those were reduced to around about 6 or 7 bills. Some of them were combined, and so your 30 may have been reduced. Some didn't make it all the way through the process. But I'm encouraged. I do believe that there was a lot of good legislation passed. There was a lot of controversy around the insurance commissioner and the governor.
They seem to be at odds. And there's controversy around a bill that was passed concerning the insurance commissioner being allowed to deny an increase.
To deny an increase or even force insurance companies to lower premiums.
Okay.
So currently, the commissioner of insurance has the authority to grant increases in premiums. I mean, insurance company can come in and say, hey, we're going up. We'd like to go up 6%, 8%, whatever. And he can grant that. But he didn't have the authority to come in and say, look, I've looked at your actuarials. I see that you're making this many millions of dollars. I think you should offer a 5% reduction, not a 5% increase. Mm-hmm. He didn't have the ability to say, no, I'm going to not let you do the increase. I'm actually going to ask you, I'm not going to ask you, I'm going to force you to do a decrease. So, so I actually like that. I mean, I love working with Tim Temple. I think he has been a brainstorm of producing a lot of these ideas of what we could do to lower insurance. Mm-hmm. But I do like the fact that we have a commissioner who does have that ability to lower, but he needs actuarial data. And that was one of the big sticking points was in some of that language, he wasn't required to look at actuarial data. Well, that didn't work. I mean, he needed to.
Yeah, that seems kind of odd. How would you make a decision without knowing the information?
That's right. I mean, you got to be able to look at the actuarials to see what the insurance companies are actually making and not making. So, look, I think that, obviously I think it could be misused, and I don't think Tim Temple would do that. But I think that I think Tim's in a good position where he can make a good, sound decision now with the information he has. And then if it's not enough, then we'll have that visit with the commissioner of insurance, and we can come back next year and tweak it.
Was he just not allowed to see that? Was that proprietary? He couldn't get that information?
I'm not sure how that worked. I just know that the insurance commissioner did not have the authority to force insurance companies to make reductions.
Right, yeah. That does seem philosophically to go against a market concept of setting costs. So
yeah, I mean,
that's kind of curious.
I found it odd that Louisiana was set up to where the insurance commissioner could permit increases but not decreases, and not permit but actually force. I mean, if he sits down and he looks at it and he says, "Hey, XYZ insurance company, your profit margin was 25% last year. Maybe it's time to give some relief to the consumer, and you're going to start giving a 5% reduction. And so instead of making a 25% profit, you're going to make a 18% profit."
Are other states doing that? Do other states that have insurance commissioners? I'm not sure.
It's a mixed bag of tricks. As I appreciate it, if I remember correctly from the debate, there are states that do permit that and some states that don't.
And comparatively, as far as rates, how do they rank with Louisiana? Do you remember?
So most of them, their rates were lower. I mean, which most any other state is low.
Yeah, that's true.
Lower than Louisiana. But I think we've done a good job. I think that based on the conversations, once again, with insurance companies, with the legislation that we've passed, that we've put ourselves more in line. We've adopted a lot of the laws that other states have, specifically our neighboring states. So I think we're in a position where now we could see those premiums reduced. But once again, Jeff, I go back to, we have a narrative in Louisiana that if you're in an accident, somehow we've created this narrative that it's a lottery.
Yeah.
And you should get paid. And look, I don't think that insurance companies should be able to walk in and say, well, we're just going to give them $50,000 and send them on their way. As the one paying the premium, no, sir, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
If I'm not at fault, I'm not forgiving them anything. If anything, I want to be compensated. I just think that we're in a much better position with the legislation that was passed last year and this year. And I think that, unfortunately, it may take 1 to 3 years before we see the results of it. We all want instant. We want it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we need it. People are hurting financially. And the other thing, though, I do want to talk about, and it was something I didn't really think a lot about. If you look at the cost of cars and trucks and parts and things like that today, you notice that, for an example, so 7 years ago when I bought a big truck, maybe I paid $120,000, $130,000. Well, today I'm paying $220,000 for the same truck.
Wow.
And those trucks are more sophisticated, more technology. They have, which they're great. I mean, they have anti-braking systems. They have anti-collision systems. I mean, they have all these things that our cars have, but it costs to repair them. It costs to replace them. It costs more. And so, obviously, naturally, insurance is going to be more because it costs more to replace it. Right. So, we don't think about those things, but I mean, even if you look at, just to go buy an average pickup truck today, I mean, you're looking at $60,000 to $70,000, and you're just getting the basic.
As much as the first house I had. There's also a difference in the cost of repairs for one of your trucks versus, I have a little mid-sized truck. It's great. If we get in an accident with one of your big trucks, it may cost, $10,000, $12,000 to fix mine. $10,000 and $12,000 probably won't do a whole lot of repair to one of your trucks.
It doesn't, Jeff. I recently had one of my trucks that was involved in an accident. Other person was at fault. They had fallen asleep and crossed the center line and sideswiped all the way down one of my new trucks.
Oh,
and the repairs were almost $35,000. Now the gentleman unfortunately only carried $25,000. So the most I could get was $25,000, and then I had to either my insurance company had to cover the rest, or either I had to pay out of pocket. So I chose to pay out of pocket to cover the difference. Otherwise, I would have an increased cost of it could potentially lead to an increase in premiums.
Right. So claim is a tick against you.
Because the claim, it goes against your loss ratios. And, so really you start looking at it in that perspective, and it's something we may have to come back and visit. When you're only requiring $25,000 as a minimum based on the cost of repairs for even if it would have been 2 automobiles. Give an example. My daughter hit a deer with a 2016 Lincoln MKX that I had, a little small SUV, and just the repairs from that deer, and it was just a front corner, was almost $9,000.
Wow.
And at that time, it was about half the value of the car. The car had a lot of miles on it from driving it to Baton Rouge, and but it was a good car for her to drive to school. But my point to that is you got to look at the cost of what things are now, and that is a driving factor in our insurance premiums and the repair bills. It contributes to the overall increases in premiums that we've all experienced. Same way for our homes.
Yeah.
We once again we renewed the Fortified Roofs program this year and put more funding in there. Where if you build a new home or if you put a new fortified roof on your home, there's a tax credit that you can get, or it's actually a grant that the state will help pay for a part of that to be done. And it encourages you to fortify your roof. If you fortify your roof, you'll see a reduction in your insurance premiums. Because in the event we have a hurricane or a tornado, your roof is less likely to be pulled off your house or damaged. And usually that's the first thing that happens is you have high winds, it pulls your shingles or your decking off. But the way this is structured, it's a more secured, and that's why they call it a fortified roof. But there's a lot of other states that had done it, and we picked it up and started following those other states. But to incentivize people to go in that direction, the state even put money toward it. I think the last 2 years we put $15 to $20 million each year.
Wow.
And even this year, the Commissioner of Insurance had some excess revenue, and he offered that up. So kudos to Commissioner Temple for doing that and utilizing those dollars to cover the cost of helping our citizens put fortified roofs on their homes.
And you've seen that interest in that program increase, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, look, every year the money's gone. I mean, they're using every bit of it. I mean, people are taking advantage of it because one thing about it, we're all going to have to put a roof on our home at some time.
Especially in Louisiana, it seems. I guess last question on insurance is, did your daughter at least get to keep the deer?
No.
Oh, man.
And you don't get to keep the deer when you hit it.
Shucks.
Actually, I'm glad because I wasn't around to clean it.
Okay. Transportation is another huge, huge issue in Louisiana. It is something that definitely affects loggers because the bridges that are can carry less weight now because of their age or damage or whatever may have happened to that over the years. You have to go with longer routes to get the wood to the mill. So that is a financial burden for loggers. And, certainly it affects the cost of everything. A few years back when I remember visiting with you on Mind of the Forest, and there was a desire to restructure DOTD. Mm-hmm. Now, that's sort of the talk of this past session. So I guess let's first touch on that part. Where is it in the restructuring of DOTD, and how will that affect Louisiana folks? Okay,
so there was legislation passed this year. Chairman Ryan Boriak, he's the chairman of Transportation in the House, carried, I think it was 4, maybe 5 pieces of legislation to restructure DOTD. Everything from the engineering to the maintenance to the management. And It was a very big task to take on. I mean, DOTD consumes a large portion of our budget, not as much as LDH, but it is a large portion of our budget. But efficiency was what he was looking for, and what the state's been looking for years. How can we expedite projects sooner? What is causing the delays? People say, well, you're just not putting enough money. Well, we've had money that we've put in toward projects, and 4 or 5 years later, those projects hadn't even began, even though the money has existed. And I can even give good examples of that in my own district, where I put the funding in for a specific bridge, and 3 years later, the bridge hasn't even been replaced. We get caught up in government regulations and bureaucracy, and I think the goal of what he was trying to do was to remove some of that bureaucracy, remove the red tape, and make government flow more efficiently. I think sometimes when you got too many chiefs and not enough Indians, and that's kind of what I think was happening. We did some things this year. We took $709 million. It was revenue that was going from over collections of corporate taxes, and it was going into the Revenue and Budget Stabilization Fund. And instead of doing that, we took that $709 million and we put it into our highway priority program, which the highway priority program determines which roads need to be replaced next. And then this will go toward the funding of that program. And additionally, $101 million of that, we began something new called bridge bundling. And the whole goal was, once again, efficiency. How can we get the best price for the bridge, get it done the most efficiently, but also get them out and get them done quicker? So, for an example, we had 3 bridge bundles that did total $101 million. For example, one of them I know had 21 bridges in it. A company can come in, bid on all 21 bridges at one time, and get the project started. And those companies like that. I mean, because they know that amount of work is going to exist for them. They can plan for it and budget for it, versus where you come back every year and you bid on a bridge, or you get one at a time.
The cost for each bridge tends to be more if you're bidding on one rather than several.
The cost is more significant. Yeah. Whereas if you bundle the bridges, the cost is less. And look, I'm going to give you an example, Jeff, on these bridges. Got one in my district. It was built in 1927.
Really?
1927.
Hasn't been replaced since 1927.
Has not been replaced since 1927, but it's going to be replaced now, and it's in that bridge bundle. But I want you to think about this, something that Governor Landry started last year. And one of the things that the state has been doing for several years is using concrete pilings. And he said, well, let's step back and take a look at this. It costs us a lot more money. It's a lot more time consuming to do the concrete pilings. Now, they do last longer, but let's step back and take it just for a second. If we know that the wood pilings are lasting 50 to 100 years, and we can do them for less cost, and they're going to do the same job, why would we not do that? So now it doesn't work in every situation, but now, I appreciate the fact that he did question it. And he says, hey, look, if we can do a wooden piling versus a concrete piling, and it saves us money, we're going to still get longevity out of the bridge, and it gets the roads opened up quicker to commerce and to our citizens, then let's look at that avenue. So there's a lot of thinking out of the box right now in terms of what can we do to make DOTD more efficient, and how can we expedite projects, especially when we already have revenue sitting there waiting for the project to begin.
So we can say trees can make Louisiana bridges better.
Trees can make Louisiana bridges better. The same ones you drive over them, you can put under them.
Well, that really is different thinking, though. I mean, it seems like there was a standard for those pilings, and I've never thought about that before. know when a bridge closes. I know the new one's going to be built eventually, and you see the trucks hauling those very large pilings on the roads. So a little boost for the forest products industry there too.
It's a
nothing
boost
wrong with that.
Boost for us. And look, and once again, I mean, if you think about it, I mean, that had been the standard for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously it worked. And you can go in and remove a wooden piling and add one if it's one that becomes weak or non-sustainable. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to remove a concrete piling and add one.
Yeah,
so,
that's true.
I just I appreciate the fact that the governor and others are looking at all aspects of it, because the fact is based on the dollars we have available, and we were resourceful this year with finding the $709 million and then $101 million for the bridges. Mm-hmm. But the fact that we could go in and do it, and maybe we can build 2 bridges using wooden pilings versus concrete pilings for what the cost of one concrete piling bridge cost. I don't know the exact number, so I don't want to mislead, but I know it's a lot more cost effective. It's a faster way to build a bridge. And we know from experience that we have gotten 50 to 100, almost 100 years out of a bridge.
Yeah.
Now, doesn't include, the thing that I want to consider is it does not include all the bridges that are operating that are posted that are weight reduced. So even trucks, regardless of what they're moving, what commerce they're moving, cannot go on some of these state highways because a bridge's post has been reduced in weight.
Yeah. So when they are bundling those bridges, do they look at it from a geographical point where there are these 21 bridges within this region and they're easier to get to, or is it just spaced out, or does it?
It's based on what would go back to the Highway Priority Program.
Okay.
The bridges that are in the worst need.
Okay.
So like when they do an assessment of a bridge to determine the variability of it, the viability of it, that decision would be based off of that. Mm-hmm. So if you looked and they bundled bridges, obviously they'd want to bundle the worst ones in this region.
Right.
So if there's, if we know there's going to be a 21 bridge bundle and there's say 3 in my district, and I may pick up 3 of them that were deemed worst or most needed replacing the quickest. I know in my district, I did have some of the bridges fall within the bundle. Mm-hmm. Also, we looked at, for years, we always put bridges. Well, some places you don't need a bridge. Sometimes you just need those concrete box culverts. You've seen them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
DOTD's been utilizing those in different areas where there's not very much water flow. Obviously, there's studies you have to do to determine whether that area
what structure would
qualify.
Best, yeah.
But those are much more cost effective and longer lasting as well. We just haven't done them as much. So now we're looking at that even more. What can we do to get the longest longevity out of a bridge or whatever a bridge replacement may be, and also at the same time most cost-effective way in proceeding forward. And so, look, DOTD is doing a lot of things, and look, I'm proud of the work that they do. If you look at even our maintenance departments, we've been able to add additional dollars to them. Give an example. Everybody likes to look at their state barn. That's what we call them. I got my state barn in my district. Wynn Parish, we have the state barn, and we've been able to send additional dollars to them to buy equipment. And look, if you don't think about it, but if you look at some of the equipment, some of our local barns are operating, it's 30, 40, 50 years old. And it's just because we haven't invested in it. So, and we can do it cheaper. And so we've kind of started directing our guys to do a little bit more asphalt in places where we could remediate roads, even pilings, and we even have a state bridge crew. It's amazing how fast they can roll in, take a bridge out, and replace it. They do a really fantastic job. I got some working right here a couple miles from my office, working on, there's 5 bridges on one road.
Wow.
And, you know, when they looked at it, and this is where I give, like I said, I like to give credit where credit is due. I mean, we like to get on DOTD and beat them up.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the same time, I do like to give credit where credit is due. There was 5 bridges on there. One was already closed. And actually, they come back later. It had a concrete deck, but the pilings were bad. But they did open it to local traffic, 1 lane only. But they said, okay, well, we're going to have to close that bridge completely to replace it, obviously. But there's 4 more bridges on that same road, and we're going to have to I said, well, wouldn't we get a better price if we bid all 5 out at one time, fix all 5 of them out at one time? If we have alternate routes where people can get to and from their homes, it can get done much quicker. And that's what we did. And so thankfully, the inconvenience to the public will be less because we were able to work on all 5 bridges at the same time so that when the road does open up, it's going to be opened up much quicker.
That's impressive, truly. I mean, like you said, we love to harp on DOTD because we see the roads, but we also are looking at future development in transportation. I know there's a lot of talk about another bridge in Baton Rouge. I don't know of anyone who has ever told me, I really love traveling through Baton Rouge, but the traffic is just so bad. And we know that stuff has to be done in there, but it seems like y'all are looking for a better balance for taking care of those things as well as helping out the rural community where we do have insufficient bridges and things of that nature.
Absolutely, because if you look at Baton Rouge, I mean, obviously it's the heartbeat of Louisiana, but it's also the only place that Interstate 10 goes down to 1 lane. And it bottlenecks when you come off the bridge. It goes down to 1 lane, and then you got to merge together. So there's already work being done there. They're expanding. They're creating more lanes. You have that, what they call the Washington Street exit right there. When you come off the bridge, you come down into the curve out of Baton Rouge. Being able to move that over or even eliminate it, that creates now, instead of having 1 lane merging with 3, you're going to have 2 merging with 4. So they're going to add another lane on each side, so you'll have more flow. But also, instead of going down to 1 lane, you'll be able to still maintain 2 lanes and merge together. So, look, I'm optimistic that's going to help. That's not going to solve everything.
Yeah.
But there are those efforts. Now, unfortunately, it's like a lot of things. It takes a lot of time because some of that's elevated.
Yeah.
And some of it's over the lakes of Baton Rouge. And so it takes a lot longer to build those type roads. But that isn't happening now. With the growth of population and business opportunities in the Ascension Parish area, East Baton Rouge, West Baton Rouge, if you look at that, I do think there'll be another bridge. I think it'll be south of Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
And that is where a lot of the traffic is coming in. I don't think it's in any effort to direct people from Baton Rouge. It's just that is a better scenario, in my opinion, of building an additional bridge.
Yeah.
So if you look at the historical, what we call the Long Bridge, the Huey Long Bridge in Baton Rouge, the old bridge,
right?
It's just 4 lanes, 2 lanes each direction. Then you had the new Baton Rouge Bridge. Well, it's not new anymore, but it's newer.
Some people still call it the new bridge, though.
They still call it the new Baton Rouge Bridge. Yeah. It's got 3 lanes going across it. And actually, there is a 4th one, but a 4th lane that kind of acts as for getting you ready to exit at Nicholson.
Yeah.
Or if you're coming back over into on the port side. But anyways, if you go further down the river and add another bridge, I think it creates the same opportunity. The first 2 bridges are, some length apart. I mean, I guess by the river, they wouldn't be more than 2 or 3 miles apart, but by road, they're several miles apart.
Yeah.
If you did the same thing, you're just creating another opportunity to take some of the pressure off of those bridges. Now, you also see Lake Charles, you're getting a new I-10 bridge. That bridge is
much needed there.
Much needed. That bridge that's there has got some issues, and it's going to have to be replaced.
Yeah.
And so I think you're going to see a lot of the good things happening. I think it just takes time. You know, when you start building bridges like that, it's not, you don't build them in 1 year.
Yeah.
And they're inconvenience. Let's just face it.
Yeah, they are. And you have to, there's so many issues with rights of way and all. There's also been talk about an Interstate 14, I think it was, an east-west route that would run through central Louisiana. Has there been any talk about that of late?
You know, I continue to hear discussions about it from our congressional delegation and from others that obviously are interested in that. I think that does create an opportunity to lower the traffic volume off of I-10. As I appreciate it, it would more than likely run through Alexandria. You know, fortunately for us, we do have Fort Polk. You know, that is a significant corridor right there.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people would like it to run across what we call the El Camino corridor, which is a Highway 84 that runs east and west. But I think that based off of data and other things that I've seen, that it would more run through Alexandria area. But that's sort of, once again, that's several years away.
Right.
Look how long it took to get I-49 built.
Do you remember when they
And it's
actually
still not
started
completed.
talking about I-49?
It was before I guess I would have been a child. It was before I started driving.
Yeah, because I remember coming from South Louisiana to go to Northwestern State. There was big talk about the interstate, and I drove Highway 1. I rode on the bus from New Orleans to Natchitoches for the 6-hour trek. Lots of time over the years, and I was well past college.
You know, I'm glad you
opened that up.
You brought New Orleans up. I tell everyone, you know, a lot of people get upset when they hear us talking about investments with New Orleans or the Saints or other things that, you know, but New Orleans is one of the largest economic drivers in the state. There's more tax revenue collected in Orleans, New Orleans, than anywhere else in the state. It is not just a significant tourist attraction. There's a lot of industry there, a lot of businesses there, a lot of corporations there. And, you know, I tell everyone, they don't have to like our politics in Winn Parish, and I don't have to like their politics, but we have to get along.
Yeah.
And there's a benefit to Orleans from Winn Parish. We have a lot of timberland here, and vital natural resources we have provides for an economy here that provides for opportunities and services that they need. And I think we work hand in hand. Orleans, New Orleans, we need things that they have. They generate revenue. I'll even go as far as even in transportation. There are transportation dollars that Winn Parish gets that are generated by parishes like Orleans. It's called the Parish Transportation Act, and the dollars are redistributed throughout the state, and it's based on how much fuel and tax is collected, but then it's based on the road mileage in your individual parish. But long story short, more of that money is generated in Orleans and other parishes than Winn Parish, but we get our fair share of it. So, you know, I like to look at it that way. So
it all helps. It all goes to the pot that everybody can benefit from that.
It does. I mean, look, even in education and healthcare, whether it's higher ed, because we do have community colleges in my district, and even our K through 12, even early childhood education now, that's become a big thing.
Yeah.
Our healthcare systems, keeping my rural hospital open. A lot of the reason we're able to do that is of dollars that are generated in other areas. Because, look, they know as well that if we don't have our rural hospital, we're going to put more people going to a metropolitan area to receive those healthcare services. And it's going to put a burden and or strain where they're trying to go. So, look, I think we just share in the resources, and we have to take an opportunity and take a step back and say, hey, I appreciate the fact that although I may not live there, I choose not to live there, but there is a benefit to me getting along with those communities and finding a way to where we can work together. Obviously, their needs and opportunities are different than our needs and opportunities here in central North Louisiana.
Yeah. Remember a couple of years ago, you and I were talking, and reform, of course, I think reform comes up every year with something in government on practically every level of it, it seems. And there was something you were talking about concerning capital outlay, and the original intent for capital outlay was for the areas that could not afford to raise enough revenue for things like sewage systems and water systems and things of that nature. But we have taken, as a state, we have taken capital outlay to include transportation and all these other things. You've got, 2 years left?
Yeah.
Okay. In those 2 years, is there any reform concerning that you still hope to address?
Well, I think that the chairwoman of Ways and Means is Julie Emerson. Mm-hmm. I think that's where capital outlay falls, is under Ways and Means, and it's usually in House Bill 2. I think between what her efforts are to restructure, and look, our current speaker, Philip DeVilliers, he sat on Ways and Means for 8 years, and so he has a greater understanding of it than I do. But there was reforms have been made, and some continue to be made, about how we utilize our capital outlay dollars. Our bonding capacity is what it is. How much money is available each year to bond out for capital outlay. And if some of those dollars that we've been utilizing are spent in other ways, then it frees up that opportunity for more capital outlay. But like, give an example, we created something called the Water Sector Program, mm-hmm. where historically to get money for a water or sewer system, you would have to go through capital outlay and you have to have matching dollars, a percentage of it. With the Water Sector Program, it doesn't happen that way, and it's based on it's scored. I mean, there's a committee that sits down and they go through the scoring. And but look, this year we put another $75 million in there. We had determined that there was about $1.3 billion in need for water and sewer in Louisiana. That's how far our water and sewer systems were behind, and everybody wants quality, safe drinking water. So what we're doing, we created the Water Sector Program a few years ago. And at least for the last 2 or 3 years, we've been able to put $75 million each year. And now we've been able to, because we've been doing this for a few years, that $1.3 billion worth of need, we have filled about $600 to $700 million of that. And so we've almost knocked it in half, the how far behind our water and sewer systems were in Louisiana.
We've kind of gotten off of the weeds of some things. Yeah. This is a show about timber, about trees, about forestry. But the business side of everything, politics affects it, insurance affects it, things of that nature. So I really am glad you've taken time with us. I appreciate that.
It does. It drives up the cost of everything. Yeah.
Well, Jack, is there anything that we haven't talked about that maybe our particular listeners in the forest products industry should know? Or
hey, look, something I'm paying attention to, it's happening in Congress, is there's been a lot of debate about weight limits on interstate highways.
Oh, absolutely.
They're discussing going to a 91,000-pound weight limit. And look, I like that. I mean, for us, we're with a state permit, you can now haul 92,000. Mm-hmm. And obviously we must be doing something right, because we were ahead of the federal government in doing that. And now the federal government's looking at going to 91,000. I think, we all need to be paying attention. We need to be calling our congressmen and saying, hey, we like the 91,000.
Yeah. That seems just to make more sense. You could put large, heavy trucks mm-hmm. on rural routes where you have a more direct route in many cases.
That's right.
When you put them on the interstate.
That's right.
And you don't have to worry about going through little towns and all these curvy roads. I mean,
that's right. And those, historically, those highways are built better to handle that type traffic. Mm-hmm. I think safety aspect of it is significant.
Yeah.
And I think it would benefit us all. So I'm optimistic. I'm hoping, and I'm definitely calling and encouraging. Yes, I'm in favor of the 91,000.
Call your congressman. You heard it here first. Actually, you didn't hear it first. We'd say that all the time. Jack, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it. If there's anything I forgot to talk about, please let's get to it now. If not, then we'll just go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much.
No, I appreciate your time and having me back on the show again.
Thank you for listening to Mind of the Forest, a podcast of the Louisiana Forestry Association. This episode was sponsored by First South Farm Credit. First South is your premier rural lender. With over 100 years financing timber and agriculture, they have the expertise you're looking for when financing rural property. If you're looking to purchase or refinance land, call your local First South Farm Credit office, or you can find them online at firstsouthland.com. If you'd like to learn more about sustainable forestry, including the Sustainable Forestry Initiative, the LFA and its programs, and how you can be part of an organization that supports landowners, loggers, and the forest products industry in Louisiana, check out our website at laforestry.com. You can send comments or suggestions to me by email at jzeringue at laforestry.com. That's jzeringue at laforestry.com. You can also check out the show notes for our contact information, as well as the contact information for our guests for this episode. You can subscribe to Mind of the Forest by clicking on the subscription button or the subscribe button on your favorite podcast app. Be sure to tap on the notification button as well. That way you'll know when they drop a new episode each month. Thank you for doing that. We do really appreciate that. And remember, at the Louisiana Forestry Association, we're Mind of the Forest for you.